Now we're going to work on graphing some inequalities. Anytime that we graph an inequality, we use an open or a closed circle. And so when we use a closed circle, we're using the greater than or equal to sign or the less than or equal to sign. So we're using one of the two. Greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. So closed circle means that it's greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. That closed circle is telling us that it's equal to this point, and then when we shade one way or the other, we're also saying that it's also equal to the points bigger or smaller than that. And then we also could graph with an open circle, and we graph with an open circle when we use the greater than or less than symbols. And so when we're showing that it's not equal to, but just greater than or just less than, is when we use our open circle. So whenever we graph, we've kind of got a couple steps here. We want to make sure that the variable's on the left side since we read from left to right. It just makes it easier for things to come off of our tongue. X is less than 5 is easier for us to understand that all of our numbers are going to be less than 5, then 5 is less than X. So when we flop this around and make the variable at the front, we can read it as a sentence and it makes a little bit more sense to us. Step number 2 is make a number line and plot the number. Use either an open or closed circle. So we'll be looking at our symbols to help us know open or closed circle. And then draw an arrow. It should go the same direction that the inequality points if you made sure that your variable was on the left-hand side first. So I'll talk about that as we go. So this first one is x is less than 5. We're going to graph x is less than 5. Whenever you write on your number line, I'm looking for 3 or more numbers. And I'm looking for the number that we're graphing. In this case, that's 5. One number that's less than 5 and one number that's greater than 5. So I'll choose 4 and 6. So I want at least 3 numbers on your number line. The variable's already on the left-hand side, so x is, that symbol is the less than symbol, 5. A less than symbol means that we use an open circle, so I'm going to put an open circle on 5. And then we have to draw the arrow and shade one direction or the other. Because x is less than 5, we're going to shade towards the number that's smaller than 5. In this case, that's 4. So I'm going to shade to the left and fill in this arrow here to show that all of these numbers on the number line are solutions, part of the solution set of x is less than 5. X cannot be equal to 5, so that's why I left it an open circle. And then I shaded to the left because it's less than 5. So for this next one, if we try to graph 5 is less than x, it makes it a little bit more confusing for us. So if we can rewrite the inequality like we did up here, when we compared values and we switched the inequalities, and put the variable first, if we trade the order, we also have to flip the sign from less than to greater than. At the top, it's opening to x. At the bottom, it's still opening to x. And so now when we read from left to right, x is greater than 5, it makes a little bit more sense to us. So our variable's on the left, and because our variable's on the left, now we can make our number line. I'm going to use 5 and then one number less than. You could choose to label it with 0 and 10. One number bigger than 5 is 10. As long as you have equal spacing, since these are equally spaced, it doesn't matter. I typically do 4, 5, 6, just one number bigger, one number smaller, but you don't have to. And if x is greater than 5, that means it's not equal to 5, so we have an open circle on the 5. You can also look up here at your cheat sheet, and greater than said we were going to use an open circle. And greater than 5 means we're going to shade towards the number that's bigger. So in this case, I'm going to shade towards the 10 because 10 is bigger. I'm going to fill in my arrow. And then I've got my solution set graphed. Any number that's bigger than 5 would make this inequality true. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, on and on for infinitely many solutions here. So this next set that we're going to graph, it gets a little bit tougher because the variable is on the left-hand side for us, but we've got negative numbers. And we have to be extra careful when we make our number line for negative numbers that we do this correctly because they go in the reverse order as our other set. Once we hit 0, then we kind of work backwards from 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So it's really important that you get your number line labeled correctly. We read this as C is less than, because that symbol looks like a sideways L, less than or equal to negative 1. So if I were going to graph C is equal to negative 1, I would put a closed dot on negative 1. So we're going to close the dot to show that it could equal negative 1. It also could be less than negative 1. And because negative 2 is less than negative 1, I'm going to shade towards negative 2 and fill in this arrow. Now, up here it mentioned draw the arrow. It should go the same direction as the inequality symbol points if you make sure the variable's on the left first. So you'll notice up here that this inequality symbol points this way and we shaded this way. When we got our variable to the left-hand side, this inequality pointed this way and we shaded this way. This inequality symbol points this way and we shaded to the left. So if your variable is on the left-hand side, you can use the arrow trick to help you also know which way to shade on your graph. This last graph we've got B is greater than or equal to negative 2. So negative 2 is going to be the center of my number line. I also need one number bigger. I'm going to choose negative 1. And one number smaller, I'm going to choose negative 3. And if B is greater than or equal to negative 2, if it's equal to negative 2, that means it's a closed circle. Or it could be bigger. And I know that negative 1 is bigger than negative 2, so I'm going to shade towards the bigger number. I'm going to shade to the right. Fill in my arrow. I also can double check if my variable's on the left-hand side, which it is. This arrow should point the same direction that I shaded, and it does. And so I think that my answer makes sense. So when we're graphing inequalities, make sure the variable's on the left-hand side, make your number line, and plot the number using open or closed circle depending on the symbol, and then draw your arrow, and it should go the same way that the inequality symbol points if the variable is on the left-hand side.